What's up, YouTube? It is Angelo from Fear the Beard Football Channel coming at you with another video. Gonna be filming this on a Friday morning. Got to do a little bit of editing after I'm done with this, but today I am going to be covering the AFC North and my predictions where each team is going to land. Going game by game. So we're going to start out with the Cincinnati Bengals. I have them going 5-11 this season. So, basically going game by game. I have them beating the Chargers, losing to the Eagles, then beating the Jaguars. And I'm just going to go down the list, just read off of this basically while I'm doing that, and then I'll tell you my predictions for certain games. Beating the Jaguars, I have them losing to the Ravens in their first matchup. Then losing to Indianapolis, Cleveland, Tennessee, and Pittsburgh. So we see a big losing streak. Then they go and play the Redskins and the Giants. I have them winning both of those games. So at that point, I have them at a 3-7 mark at that point. Going on a 2-game losing streak to Miami and Dallas. I have them beating Pittsburgh, so splitting that, and then following up with 3 consecutive losses to Houston, Cleveland, and Baltimore. And actually, Cleveland is in week 2, so that was one of my mistakes right there. So I just kind of put that in there. So I caught that when I was going through the record and just honestly decided that I would kind of pre-mention that during the video. So that's my fault, but whatever. I have them going 5-11. They could do a little bit better, honestly. There's a few outlier games in there. A lot of people think that they're really not as good as what they actually are. A lot of people forget that they were without Jonah Williams, their first-round pick from a season ago. So that's really going to help out their offensive line. They didn't have A.J. Green for most of the year. They do draft Joe Burrow. Whether that's going to be an upgrade from Andy Dalton or not, because I've sat there and told you my opinion on Andy Dalton in the past, that I do think he's a decent quarterback. He just was in a bad organization. Not trying to crap on Bengals, organization. Definitely, their fans, to my opinion, deserve better because those are some hardcore fans. But, they add Trey Waynes, who's a very solid cornerback. They add Von Bell, and then they add DJ Reader. So they did bulk up that defense a little bit and just added some depth. So I like what they did this offseason. It's one of the very few times where they've actually spent money on players in their prime. So, I'm kind of interested to see how they are. I'm interested to see how Joe Burrow does in the NFL. And I just feel like 5-11 is a good mark to put them at, but they honestly could do a little bit better. They really could. It really depends on how well Joe Burrow translates into the NFL. And we really haven't seen a full season of Zach Taylor as a coach. Last year, in my opinion, was an outlier, so we have no idea how he really coaches, if he is kind of like a Sean McVay type deal. And then also their run game is going to get a little bit better with Jonah Williams coming back. Joe Mixon really had no offensive line to run behind last year, so let's see what the Billy Price-Jonah Williams combination is going to look like for one full season, and then we'll make that judgment. Moving on to the Cleveland Browns. Now, this is one of my teams that I feel like that didn't make the playoffs last year, that will this year. They bring in Jack Conklin. Loved that. He was a big help with opening up holes for Derrick Henry. So that's only going to help that offensive line. I think a big reason why they took a step back last year was because with the Odell Beckham trade, they gave up Kevin Zeitler to the Giants, who was a big part of their offensive line. When you lose someone like that, it's really going to affect your quarterback. And, offensive line just doesn't get enough credit. They're the unsung heroes for teams. And if you lose a key piece on there, you're going to take a step back. But, no, I have them going 10-6 this year. Going game by game, losing to Baltimore, beating Cincinnati, beating Washington, losing to Dallas, beating Indianapolis, losing to Pittsburgh. They go on a 3-game win streak against Cincinnati, Las Vegas, and Houston, which that's a big part of their push for the playoffs. Then they lose to Philadelphia. They beat Jacksonville. They lose 2 games to Tennessee and Baltimore, and then they win their final 3 games against the Giants, the Jets, and the Steelers. This is a team who already has a very solid run defense. They We've seen that. That's been a big reason why they were, very competitive in Baker Mayfield's rookie season. A lot of it has to do with, does Baker Mayfield make that next step forward? And I personally think he can. He has a lot of confidence. He has swagger. So that's something that you need if you're going to be a quarterback, the face of a franchise. I really like the guy. I just think that he needs to kind of tone it down just a little bit. I like confidence. I like a little bit of like that edge, but I don't like it when it goes into being cocky. He hasn't done anything to be cocky yet. But, if you're going to be confident, I love that attitude. It's almost like you go into every game feeling like you're going to win. And if you go into a, situation and you feel like you're going to win, 9 times out of 10, you are going to come out with that W. So yeah, they're going to be 10-6 in my opinion. That's, moving on to the Baltimore Ravens though. I have them going 13-3. A lot of this really hinges on Lamar Jackson staying healthy. They were a team that I believe if they didn't average 200 yards a game, they were very close to it. I didn't really check up on that stat, but I remember that was something that was thrown around last year, that they were averaging 200 yards a game. But we all know that their game is running, and a lot of it has to do with Lamar Jackson. And I talked about that in a video in the past where, John Harbaugh really had to change his coaching style to basically fit Lamar Jackson. And a lot of coaches don't do that. So that's one thing that I like about John Harbaugh is, he didn't sit there and say, well, Lamar, you have to play to my, scheme. He just went on ahead and was like, this is what I have. Let me build my offense around him. Then when they brought in Mark Ingram, that just made things a lot better. They draft J.K. Dobbins. I feel like that's a huge addition, and it's going to help them out in their run game. We have no idea what that means for Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. I can only imagine that they're going to be phased out because it just makes sense with Mark Ingram being that power back. You don't need someone like a Gus Edwards who is another power back. It makes sense to have like kind of like what Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams were, type of a smash and dash type, if you kind of get what I'm saying. So I like that about the Baltimore Ravens. But let me go over their schedule. I have them beating Cleveland in week 1. Then I have them beating Houston, Kansas City, Washington, and Cincinnati. So I have them starting out 5-0. And I feel like that's very, I feel like that's, I really don't think you can argue with that. The only one that you can really sit there and say they would lose is the Kansas City game. But I believe that Kansas City, kind of coming off of a Super Bowl, I don't think they're going to regress. I think they're going to win their division. But, usually when you come off a Super Bowl, you're a little overhyped. And Baltimore has something to prove, that they were, record-wise the best team in the NFL last year. And they got knocked out early in the playoffs by the Titans. So I feel like they're going to have that little chip on their shoulder, and that's going to kind of give them the edge in that game. But that is one of those games that can go either way. So if you want to tell me that you think Kansas City is going to win that game, I'm not going to sit there and argue with you and tell you that you're wrong. I have them getting their first loss to Philadelphia. Philadelphia made a lot of improvements this season. And I just, it's going to be a tough matchup, and I just feel like they edge them out. But then I have them going on and beating Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, New England, and Tennessee. So, that's 10 games into the season. I have them starting out 9-1. I do have them losing to Pittsburgh and then Dallas. The reason why I think Dallas is a good team, and I feel like that they're going to turn things around. And then every good team ends up losing one game that I feel like that they should win. And theoretically, Baltimore should beat Dallas because they have a better defense and they have a better offense. Now, who has the better receivers? Dallas does. But ultimately, the more efficient offense, in my opinion, is the Baltimore Ravens, and they do have a better defense. So, in my opinion, theoretically, Baltimore should win that game, but I believe that's going to be one of those games that they should have won that they didn't. But then I have them winning out the last 4 games, beating Cleveland, Jacksonville, Giants, and then the Cincinnati Bengals. So I have them going 13-3. And obviously that's going to be enough to win the division. Now we move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a team where I have them. First of all, I have them going 8-8. Obviously, they could do better. It really depends on Ben Roethlisberger, because I feel like he's kind of at the tail end of his career. You know, you see like guys like Tom Brady and Drew Brees playing into their 40s. You know, we saw Phillip Rivers took a bit of a regression. Well, Ben Roethlisberger is one of those guys where, you know, he's taken a lot of abuse. I think only 3 times in his career he's made it the full 16 games. So I feel like regression is about to set in. Now, if the Tommy John surgery takes and he ends up having one of his best seasons, I'm wrong. You know, obviously, because I feel like the big reason why they're going to be 8-8 is because of their defense. I feel like they're going to be in a lot of knockdown dragouts, kind of, you know, maybe, you know, 12 to 15 games, you know, feel kickers win, whatever, you know, kind of something like that. I just don't believe in John Connor as a running back too much, so I don't think that's enough to carry the team. I think he'll regress. He doesn't have the weapons he used to have in the past. But let's go over their schedule. I have them beating the Giants, losing to the Broncos, beating Houston, losing to the Titans, beating Philadelphia. Now, that puts them at 3-2 through the first 5. This is where things kind of start to fall apart a little bit, because I have them going on a 3-game losing streak to Cleveland, Baltimore, and Dallas. But things do pick up a little bit. So that would put them kind of at a 3-5 mark, I believe. Yeah, 3-5 through the first 8 games of the season. That's the first half. I do have them, though, going on a 4-game win streak and beating the Bengals, the Jaguars. I do have them beating the Ravens and then beating the Redskins. Why I have them beating the Ravens is because no matter what, those games are always exciting. Ben knows the Ravens. That defense is, you know, I don't think it's better than Baltimore, but it's not that far off. They do have a really good defense, and that's definitely going to carry them. And I just feel like that's going to be one of those, like, you know, divisional games. They never disappoint. They're always, you know, 9 times out of 10, they're usually really good. So I just feel like they'll end up edging them out. And Baltimore and Pittsburgh is always just one of those matchups. No matter what, it's always good. Going into the final 4 games, so that would put them at 7-5. You know, and then they're in a position where they might make the playoffs, and then things fall apart. I do have them losing to the Bills. The Bills, to me, are the superior team. That hinges on Josh Allen continuing his trajectory. He made like, you know, another stride last year, and if he continues to make those strides this year, the Bills are only going to be better. I had them losing to the Bengals. And then I had them losing to the Indianapolis Colts, whereas I've told you guys that I have them going down the stretch, winning the final 6 games of their season, you know, and pushing for the playoffs. But then I have them beating the Cleveland Browns in the final game. And, you know, at least, and that's the biggest reason why I have them beating Cleveland in the last game of the season, is just because no matter what, I think Mike Tomlin is always going to find a way to not have a losing record. So I feel like they're going to be an 8-8 team. They obviously can do better than that. It really depends on Ben Roethlisberger, but just off of my judgment, I think regression is due for Big Ben. We're about to see him play his first full season without Antonio Brown and without Le'Veon Bell together. So I just think that plays a big part in it. But you know, I could be wrong. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. That actually ends my video, but I want to sit here and say, you guys know I enjoy making these videos for you. I love putting out this kind of content for you guys. And I just really honestly hope, you know, that you guys continue to watch my videos and that you love what I'm putting out for you guys. If you haven't already and you did enjoy this video, please hit the like button. And if you haven't, also subscribe and turn the bell on. All that's going to do is help out this channel and then, you know, help me put out better content for you. And, but yeah, no, that wraps up my video. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day and I hope you guys enjoy your weekend.